So we're here at the British Computer Society in London this morning to talk to Simon Humphreys, who's Computing at School's National Coordinator. Rather than talking about computer science or computer science education this morning, we're actually going to be talking about CAS itself. Simon, it's great to be here with you.
Good morning, thank you.
So tell us, how did CAS get started?
CAS started, I suppose we need to go back to the late 2000s, 2007, 2008. It maybe helped me a little bit my own personal journey, but I was teaching at the time, and my teaching career has been split in two. I started off teaching music for a number of years. Music is my first degree, and then I went back to university to do a computer science degree, and I found myself then teaching computer science at a sixth form college in Cambridge. And it was my own naivety, I suppose, when I discovered that for many of my students, they were saying there's no point me doing A-level computing because the universities don't want it.
Gosh.
I thought that seems a bit odd, particularly coming from the music world, where you couldn't have done your A-level without having done GCSE and without having done music beforehand.
And you certainly wouldn't have got onto a music course at university without an A-level in music.
Exactly. And you certainly wouldn't have done any of it if you hadn't had some prior instruction in this is what the dots look like, and you had to go playing some musical instruments. You might have had to go composing some stuff as well. And that was all part and parcel of your music education that was leading towards the end goal, which could just be personal enjoyment, or it could have been a degree.
But a very powerful metaphor there for what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that struck me as odd, and it was very naive, I think, at the time. But I thought, well, don't they do any of this computer science further down the school? And clearly not. And this was at a time as well in the sort of mid 2000s when lots of students were voting with their feet and choosing not to do A-level computing and also A-level ICT as well. Numbers were going down. The number of students going to do degree courses at university was in free fall, and it was down about 50% across a certain decade, which is a significant number. At a time when there were significant shortages in the IT industry, needing these good quality graduates coming out, and at a time when our world was becoming more and more imbued with digital devices, and
yes.
Our students were beginning to have mobile phones and they were wired into their gaming consoles and whatever else. It was becoming more and more ubiquitous. Yet students were saying, no, I don't want to study this. And that just struck me as odd. So there was a number of those sorts of factors. Both are thinking, we could be doing more of this computer science further down the school. That seemed to be a good thing. We need our children to understand more about how the technology works and to be creatively problem solving with them, including programming elements as well. That really kind of led to a few of us thinking about what can we do.
Yes.
And it seemed to me that one of our aims should be to see computer science taught as a subject discipline in schools. But then allied to that, and very closely allied to that, would be the need to support teachers in the classroom who wanted to do this better and do more of it. And so CAS started, initially with a few discussions with 3 or 4 of us, hosted initially at Microsoft Research through their former director, Andrew Herbert, and also one of the senior researchers there, Simon Jones, who is now chair of CAS. And it was really Simon Jones who then kind of took the bull by the horns, as it were, and gathered a larger group of 20 people, all of whom seemed to be interested in computing education, and just kind of laid on the table, what do you think we can do? And Computing at School started from there, officially in 2008.
So Simon, looking back, what have been the key milestones? What are the things that CAS has done that you're most proud of?
Right, well, there's 2 things there, aren't there? I suppose the most important milestone was to see computer science through the subject of computing now established in the national curriculum,
yes.
Implemented in September 2014. That was certainly something that at the time CAS started, I personally, I have to confess, had doubts that it would ever be there. So it was an enormous moment of relief, I suppose, that it was there and in statute for the national curriculum. So that's the biggest milestone. The kind of recognition of the subject from the Department of Education was hugely important.
And CAS played a significant role in that process.
Along with other people as well.
Yes,
I mean, it certainly wasn't just CAS, but there were a number of others who were also beating the same drum, recognising the same issues, and sort of coming to the same conclusion that there's something we need to be doing right from the moment that children enter the school, all the way through. So the fact that it's there in primary is very important.
And the first country in the world to make computer science an entitlement.
So I
private
understand.
computers.
Yeah. And I think it is for me the analogy I have with my previous life as a musician and a music teacher. It's there as well. We teach music from day one. So we begin to get children familiar with the ideas, the concepts, the play, the fun, the excitement of using music. So we can do the same thing with computer science. And then as they go through the school, you add on layer by layer by layer. And at certain points, some of those children will decide not to do it anymore, which is absolutely fine. But they will then carry through with them some model of computation about their digital world, which hopefully will hold true for their future employment.
There's an entitlement for all, although not
Correct.
all will pursue it as a career. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. As for what we feel most proud of, it's hard to use the word proud, but I get staggered by the way in which the teachers are engaging with each other and are supporting with each other. And one of the whole kind of concepts and ethoses behind where computing at school started was this sort of picture that there were individual teachers all over the country feeling similarly as I was in my classroom, frustrated and concerned and thinking there must be something we can do, but I feel so powerless, I'm just on my own. And a lot of what CAS was trying to do was to connect those teachers together and say, well, yes, you might feel, somebody else down the road actually feels the same. Why don't you talk to each other? Why don't you share what you're doing? And then together you gradually begin to network people and build this sort of community activity and share and share your passion with each other. And to see that still going on, and we kicked off in the early days a hub. First one happened in Cambridge. And that first meeting we had about 30 odd people there. Not odd people, but 30 people. Half of whom had travelled a very long way from neighbouring counties.
Yes.
So then it was easy to, why don't you have your own meeting, and just share what you're doing with each other and raise the level of confidence amongst each other. And now we're approaching 200 in the country of teachers just volunteering to hold meetings, bring teachers together, share what they're doing. And as I look back over what we started way back then, I think that's the bit that I feel most proud of, or that we should feel most proud of as a community. The way teachers have just gone out of their way to look to help each other has been extraordinary.
There are so many projects that CAS is involved with, that CAS leads on. Can you talk us through some of the initiatives, some of the things that CAS does?
Yeah, fundamentally it's about supporting teachers. It's about raising their confidence level to tackle this new subject. So everything all kind of comes back to that point. So whatever activities we do, it is about working with teachers.
Yes.
So we specifically don't do kind of what I would call school engagement events.
Yes,
we don't work with
Yes.
pupils. We want to work with the teachers. The thesis being that if you have a motivated, passionate, capable, confident teacher, job's done.
Yes, and that scales, of course.
Exactly.
Yes,
The children will be there, and they will enjoy what is being delivered by that teacher. I think, but the challenge that is there for the majority of the teachers is enormous. To transition from ICT to computing, you cannot underestimate that challenge and that journey.
Primary and secondary.
For both primary,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
And particularly given that a significant number of those teachers who were teaching ICT, for them, they had learned that themselves because their first degrees or previous qualifications would have been in another subject. They found they enjoyed ICT, they moved over to that. So they'd already done a lot of work in moving from geography or business studies or wherever into ICT. They're now being asked to move from ICT and computing. And I feel in awe and admiration for those teachers who are saying, right, let's just do this.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it's just awe-inspiring.
What has CAS done to help with that transition from
so,
ICT to computing?
Yeah, so the journey, I think, to help teachers on that journey, any of the professional development that they might receive, it needs to be a human process. I don't think it's a mechanical process. I don't think it's enough to say to teachers, there's a wonderful online course you can do, why don't you sign up for that?
Wonderful online courses.
Indeed there are, and I want to dismiss that, but I think as a primary route to the teachers and to help them to understand, it needs to be something that they can go to physically.
Okay.
And it could be face to face. preferably and ideally local, so that teachers are very time constrained. Being able to finish school and then travel to, say, a hub meeting that's only 20 minutes away and spend a couple of hours there, they'll still be home for 6:30, put the children to bed or whatever, that would be the ideal. So it needs to be local, it needs to be face-to-face. And also I think that given the time involved and the constraints involved, as much of that delivery can be teacher-driven and teacher-led helps, because it just helps the credibility points. I think teachers are the world's worst to put into training environments and kind of back to school environments, because we're very judgmental, we're very cynical, and we want to know, well, do you really know what it's like to be shut out of your ICT suite on a wet Friday afternoon with only an hour's notice? Well, if you don't, I'm going to sit here and I might not listen to you. So there is that credibility. So a lot of all the activity that we try to put together with CAS through the community building is built on those three premises.
Yes.
It's local, it's face-to-face, and it's teacher-led, teacher-driven. And I think that's important. Allied to a lot of that, we try to do is then provide the mechanisms, provide the infrastructures, provide the resources that will help people deliver that training. So there's a variety of projects going on at the moment, both in trying to support our hubs more directly. We have some funding from the Department for Education to establish to build on a training programme epitomised through the CAS Master Teacher role.
Yes.
And that again just epitomises they are local, they're delivering face-to-face support and training and coaching and mentoring, and they're all teachers as well. So it's about helping teachers get together in amongst themselves with resources that we can provide for them to just raise their confidence levels.
Important as it is, CAS is only part of a much broader ecosystem around computing education, coding, if you will. Is there a sense of a shared vision, or is there a danger of mixed messages across that broader ecosystem or network?
Yeah, interesting question. I think there is a shared vision that most of us in CAS and elsewhere who are working want to see that all children have the right to an outstanding computing education, and that ought to be a given. How we get there might be different nuances and different emphases, but that should be our ultimate goal. How does every child receive an outstanding computing education? And I think that there is certainly an issue in the public domain, perhaps, around the role of programming within this. And that
much of the media coverage focuses on coding, and yet CAS's mission is around computer science education.
Exactly, and I think the coding, the programming in question, it's an easy hook to get hold of, and that's why it has become so prevalent. But that is also an Achilles heel. We don't want to give that impression that actually what we're really doing is we're introducing a coding curriculum. It's not a coding curriculum, and the goal
just
isn't...
as music education isn't a recorder curriculum.
Well, exactly. I think that the analogy I come back to within music is that, yes, in every music class that I took, give or take, the children were making music. They were performing, they were composing. It was the most important aspect of what we did. But I wasn't teaching the children so that one day all of them could sit on the front desk of the London Symphony Orchestra. I was teaching about melody and rhythm and harmony and so on and so forth. And I think this is where programming sits in that same space. It's a fundamental activity that if you are doing computer science, you will be learning how to program. But our goal isn't to produce hundreds and thousands of brand new software engineers. Not everyone's going to become a software engineer. We need more than we've got at the moment. We just don't need them all to become software engineers. But the programming is the vehicle by which we try out the ideas and we explore the concepts, and it's where...
So you wouldn't be in favour of an entirely unplugged computing curriculum?
I don't think so, no. And I think, unplugged is brilliant because it enables some of the more complex concepts to be taught in a way that even the youngest of children can begin to understand. Yes. And I think there's an analogy here.
Recipes for pizzas and jam sandwiches.
Absolutely right. And there is another analogy. Forgive me for yet another analogy coming back to music. We might know about how a fugue is put together. Bach wrote lots of fugues. They're very complex. They're potentially quite mathematical. I don't think we need all our children to be able to write a fugue. I would struggle myself how to write a fugue, and have done over the years. But being able to recognise the fugue when you see it and think, that's how this is put together, and be able to pick these things apart is really important.
Yes.
And so similarly within programming and your problem solving, you might come across a particular situation and think, I've seen that before.
Right.
I can now use it, I can now reuse the same thinking that I used here for this particular
Computational
situation.
thinking, notions of generalisation.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And that is really what we're about. And so where there are mixed messages, I think the programming is one of those mixed messages. And I feel over time that will fall out. People will begin to understand what that is about. There's also certainly some mixed messages, or mixed messages is perhaps the wrong phrase, competing arguments for the role of digital literacy and how that gets defined, as opposed to just teaching pure computer science. And again, I'd like to see the computing curriculum be considered as, well, actually includes digital literacy and information technology and computer science. So there's that other message that this is a computer science curriculum is also misleading. That actually the whole notion of digital literacy is so important and should be part of our arsenal as computing teachers.
That we do want children leaving school being able to make presentations and use spreadsheets and know how to keep themselves safe and act ethically and responsibly with technology, just as much as we want them to understand these principles of computer science.
Absolutely. I mean, my gut feeling, it is a purely gut feeling, says that if they have some understanding of how these tools have been put together in the first instance, then their ability to understand how they manipulate those tools will be enhanced.
So for teachers who are just getting started teaching computing or have taken on the responsibility as a computing coordinator or head of department, what would be your advice? What are your top tips for them?
Well, obviously, I suppose the first one is join computing in school. Subscribe to that forum, get involved. Online forums can be interesting places, and some people would prefer to lurk in the background, watching the conversations fly past. That's completely okay. But equally, I used to say at the start of every year with a brand new class, if you don't know something, put your hand up, ask, and that's okay. And my passion is that CAS provides that safe and secure environment where everybody feels they can put their hand up and ask what they might feel are silly questions, but we've all had those questions at one point or another.
Yes.
We're all at different stages of our journey. And
we have the forum, no question is ever too small, too silly, to forget exactly the words.
Yeah, and we know those who have participated in the CAS forum, sometimes those conversations get too technical too quickly. Sometimes
we have
people
some of the leading software engineers of our generation in that. Yes.
Indeed. But join CAS, lurk but take part, contribute. And when you join CAS, you'll soon find, because you can find through once your sort of profile on the page, where your nearest hub is and where your nearest master teacher is. So again, make contact with them. Send them an email, say, I'm here, I'm looking for some help and support, what can I do? And kind of get involved with the community activities where you are.
Simon, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Miles. Thank you.